And this is the actual town of Alarcos here. Um, the jewelry shop is here. If you run in from the north, you run along this trench here. The armor, the main armor vendor is here. He sells your weapons and armor. People would sell their, their weapons that they found in loot and stuff like that that they didn't want here. So you'd always come here to this armor vendor to look and see maybe if somebody, maybe you get lucky and somebody would be selling a, somebody had sold an ice sword they couldn't use. So maybe you could pick up that ice sword or that, flame dagger or whatever it was you were looking for in elemental damage because those kind of weapons were very rare, especially at early levels back in the day. A lot of this stuff wasn't here in this town back then. Um, Statue wasn't there. The Archmage was back over on this side, and you have a trench running east back that way, and then you also have this trench running back to a west lifestone this way. And so you'd have three different, uh, you know, lifestones people were attuned to, and they'd come and they'd meet in town, and there'd be wars and battles and a meeting place, whatever it was. The lifestone here in the center of Alarcos was not here back in the day. They started putting lifestones in the center of towns when the population started dwindling. But yeah, it was always fun coming here to try to buy spell components or whatever, and never knowing what player might be coming to shoot you down. It always made it really exciting. And so most of my time that I spent playing the game was I was just running around here, just fighting monsters, leveling up. And I think it took me like a week to get to like level 10. And I was just running. I wasn't playing 10 hours a day or nothing like that, but I'd get on, log on for an hour or two here, hour or two there, pretty much every day, most days or whatever. And I would fight monsters and I would level up. And I still remember the first character that I saw messing around here. He was like, oh man, he was way up there because he was like level 22 or something, 25 maybe. And oh man, I looked up to him because he was, way up there in level. And I just hoped to be as good as he was someday. And, he didn't attack me. I seen him sometimes and he didn't attack me. And it was, the Darktide server just like this. So, and I'd already been killed by countless other red players. So I already had my little vengeances going on with other characters and high level bloods that were running around back then and all that good stuff. So my first allegiance that I swore to was to a guy here named Peanut. His name was Peanut in the game. I still remember his name. Uh, and he was like in his level 20s. And he actually told me, he's like, wow, he said most characters don't, he said most guys don't run around and aren't dedicated to leveling up like you are. So he says, I see you're pretty dedicated to leveling up. So he was interested in having me as his vassal because in the allegiance system in Asheron's Call, you pass experience, a portion of the experience you earn, you pass that up through your patron, whoever you swear to. And he was sworn to somebody else in the allegiance, and the experience ended up passing up through like a chain through the experience, through the allegiance system that Asheron's Call was brilliant to set up. And that was a great way to actually, have people interact and talk to each other and, join basically guilds or what they called allegiances. So it really worked out well. And the allegiance that I swore to was a very minor group. There was very few anti-PKs in Asheron's Call. So that's what I decided to be early on when I was getting randomly PK'd all over the time. I decided that I was going to be a good guy. Just as I've decided to do now, I've decided not to RPK with this character. That may change over time, because things are so much different than they were back then. But I decided to never RPK, random PK somebody for no reason. I mean, I had to have a reason, like maybe I knew they were an RPK group for me to go against them or attack them. So that was always fun too, either swearing yourself good or bad or, good, evil, or neutral. And yeah, the allegiance I swore to was House of Blackrock. It was a very small group. I remember some of the people's names in the group. In the allegiance was Ludius, I know, and gosh, I can't remember all the characters. I know there was Peanut, Ludius, and I can't remember. I remember there was a lady that played named Shayla or something, and Xander Blackrock was the leader, and I think he was like in his 40s or 50s, so everybody looked up to him as far as level. And I think the max level was like 120 something back when I played that. But it was good times. I mean, I didn't do the quest like I'm doing now, and the leveling process was so much slower. And Allegiance was talk, and somebody would find one of these, silly rings or swords or something like that that they knew another person in the Allegiance might be able to use, and they would talk about it on the Allegiance chat, and everybody would say, hey man, can I have that? And most of the time it wasn't even sold. I mean, it was just, kind of traded within the Allegiance to better help each other out. So it was really cool. If we saw blood running around here in all our costs, because you didn't usually see bloods around here unless they were attacking the people over here. If I saw a blood, I'd be like, hey, blood at North Alarcos Lifestone, and several people in the guild might come in and try to protect our Lifestone here, and it was just fun times with all those players. And so much has changed now. I mean, it's kind of sad, really, that it's such a great game and such great times have now, kind of dissolved what they have. Few players, but the main thing I'm really trying to say is, if this game, if you people would, if people now, what am I trying to say? The main thing I'm trying to say is if players, I'm talking about game players, you guys out there that, call yourself gamers, if you can look past the graphics of a game like this today, and I mean, it still looks pretty decent. Even 14 years later, the graphics are still not that bad. I remember when I first got Asheron's Call after playing Ultima Online, pretty heavy for a couple of years. I got Asheron's Call the first time, and I remember I put it on my system, and I didn't have the settings set up, set near as highly as I do now. But I remember I was blown away with the graphics back then. I was in awe of the way the clouds moved across the sky, the way the terrain looked. I remember I just being in awe of the sky, the sun, and because back then in 99, 2000 when this came out, this was unheard of, and for it to be such a huge world with no loading, that was also unheard of. A seamless game. I mean, it was awesome back then for the time. So even the graphics today, I mean, they're not that bad. I know that they're nothing compared to Guild Wars 2 and some of the newer games that are out today. But the thing that all the other MMOs are missing is the game depth, the originality that Asheron's Call had. Games today miss that. They miss the point. They miss the ability, the customization that you have with a game like Asheron's Call to be able to control every skill. Every facet of your game can be controlled by you. That is what makes it awesome. What skills you train, when, how much experience you dump into each skill, the exact pieces of armor that you wear, the ability to customize each piece of random loot that you get. No other game compares to Asheron's Call even today, with all the MMOs they've made. Since this one being Asheron's Call was the third major MMO ever launched. It was Ultima Online, EverQuest, and Asheron's Call. There was other ones like Meridian 59 and stuff like that, but I'm talking about the three major retail MMOs that you could buy back then were Ultima Online, EverQuest, and Asheron's Call. And as to date, no other game has competed with the depth that you can find in a game like Ultima Online or Asheron's Call. Asheron's Call today is just still so original. And there's so much depth to the game, and over the years since Asheron's Call has been released, they've added content to the game and lore, and quests and weapons and armor and all kinds of things and monsters almost every month. For 14 years, so it has so much depth now compared to what it used to be. It's there's so much more lore and so much everything else to experience in Asheron's Call, but it just doesn't have the players. Because most of the players, all they care about is eye candy. Most players don't care about random loot and how cool that is, or how cool it is to be able to pump your own experience into each skill, or characters don't, most players don't seem to care about the fact in Asheron's Call you can actually, move sideways and dodge projectiles or dodge, magic attacks. In other games, somebody shoots a firebolt at you, no matter what you do, it's going to hit you. You can escape that and avoid that in a game like Asheron's Call. There's just so many things. I could go on and on and on about how Asheron's Call blows away about every other MMO out there, especially every MMO since World of Warcraft. All these other MMOs have tried to make a clone of World of Warcraft, and none of them compare. I mean, none of them make a wart on Asheron's Call Rear End. It's just such a superior game in every way, and it's sad to see that so few players have experienced Asheron's Call or are experiencing it now. I mean, Asheron's Call could be great if players were to start coming back and filling these empty lands. I mean, there's a lot of fun to be had here. So if you're not playing Asheron's Call, if you've never experienced Asheron's Call, I challenge you to give it a shot. Give a game with such depth as Asheron's Call a shot. I mean, there's a reason it's still here 14 years later. Even though it's not pumping in the millions and billions of dollars like some of the other MMOs out there that are, all eye candy and no depth. There's a lot of depth and a lot of fun to be had here in Asheron's Call. So I'm asking you to heed the call. Come back to the land of Dereth and see what it's all about. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Signing off is Zaxter99, and we'll see you in the next episode.